Good evening to my friends, enemies, family, and foes. It has been too long since I've made a podcast. The last one I recorded was actually with this guy right here on Zoom with our friend Quinn, and that was right after the election. And a lot has happened since Trump got inaugurated. And Gabe is a newly welcome to the Torn Meniscus Club. So, we've had an interesting year, and so we have a lot we want to catch up on. And he also was a organizing director for the S on 4 campaign in 2024 in Florida. And I think I'm just excited to have a conversation about the state of affairs with somebody who I think challenges me intellectually and provides some good insight as to what's going on in the land of the free.
Yeah, what's up, Michael? Thanks for the invitation. Yes, formerly youth organizing manager for Yes on 4. Now I'm getting into some substitute teaching, some more public service work with a local commissioner, and also into some financial services. So expanding my repertoire here in this new Trump era. It's felt like years already. And
Every
it's
day.
only been 2 months.
Yeah.
Insane.
We got to do a bingo. Nazi salute. Check.
Already did that.
A camp where you send people you don't like. Check.
Yep. Takeover of the federal payment system. It's happened already.
Well, before we get too deep into the Twilight Zone, tell me about the financial services you mentioned.
Yeah, of course. If I could plug myself a little bit, I'm the newest life insurance agent for Experior Financial Group. If you look it up, Experior is a very well-respected financial group based in Canada and the US. They're currently the 6th largest IMO in the United States.
What does that mean?
That's an independent marketing organization. Basically, we have clients who we connect to life insurance policies. So a lot of people now may be experiencing the loss of their Social Security benefits. I know personally my savings account has depleted in the recent year.
Me too. Okay, I'm glad that's not just me, dude.
yeah, like I have no savings, right? And so I was approached by a friend, mentor type figure, and they taught me how you can use a life insurance policy as a savings account, but which is supercharged because it's not held back by some of the restrictions that your bank will have on your savings account, low interest rates. Life insurance policy can actually help you supercharge your savings account and also make sure that your family is okay in the case that anything should happen to you. So I'm coming at this from a very public sector worker angle. I want to do what's best for families, and that's learning how to be financially literate.
That's important, man.
Yeah,
especially for people that don't speak English as a main language.
Exactly. I'm very interested in bringing this to my community and creating some generational wealth. Since we know these are tricks that the wealthy use to multiply their wealth, but it's often not known and not available to other communities. Yeah. So I'm happy to be doing that now. And
substitute teaching, dude.
Yeah, and you got to give back to the kids. Obviously, I think I have a lot to teach, and even if it's just substitute teaching, which is not the most respected role, there's a lot of material good you can do on the day-to-day for kids who you didn't even know needed it. So I'm happy to be doing that as well.
Nice, man. I just went today to a Central Florida reception center. It's a prison, and gonna do some volunteer tutoring to practice you know, if I want to teach in the prisons eventually with like the master's degree
Mm,
and like teach like serious, you know, serious classes. Oh shit. No, baby. I love you, Jinx. This is Jinx, everybody. She's gonna get really mad. Okay.
Hey, Jinx.
But if you ever want to like do anything like that, let me know and I
Yeah.
can plug you in. Um, but the reason I wanted to get the master's degree is because with the volunteering, you're kind of tutoring people that are supposed to get their GED, not like they're choosing to. And with like the master's degree, if you're teaching a big like class,
Mhm.
it's like a very select few of people in that prison who like really want to give it all to the class that you're teaching. And remind me afterwards if to talk to you about FCHEP,
FCHEP.
the Florida Coalition,
Yes. Yeah,
because
definitely.
might be some job opportunities
Hey,
that I would like to
hey, I'm
throw at you.
all right. All
Yeah.
right. I'll consider everything.
Yeah, dude.
Definitely.
So we were talking about the bingo, the Nazi salute, the federal takeover and everything.
Yeah.
Let's I have a good question to start.
Hmm.
Give me like a piece of political news. What give me one thing in January, and I'll give you one thing in January, and then we can start off February, but like what's something that you were like, holy shit, like I cannot believe this happened.
Most surprising? Are we looking at most surprising thing that happened in January? I'm not sure, man. I'm not one to be shocked by
Yeah.
what this administration is doing.
But like what would you say is like just get like what's one thing that was like holy shit?
So one thing that was like, holy shit, it's at the top of
Yeah.
everyone's radar, right? And I think we're all kind of shocked in a way. And I wasn't expecting this, even though there was talk in the campaign trail about it. These tariffs.
Oh
Man.
my God, those
Like,
tariffs, bro. Yeah.
and I've more been keeping track of what the Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, is saying and doing, because I think her response is the model for what a socialist leader should do in response to, you know, a hostile fascist government.
So what was her
Um,
response?
and well, let me get to it. So I was really shocked that the Trump administration was ready to like implement these tariffs as soon as February.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, in this capitalist economy, which, you know, everyone has told us for years that, oh, the game is rigged like this, or else we'll have chaos.
Mhm.
Prices are high because they have to be high. There has to be a lower class. The poor have to exist, right? So in that framework, here comes a con man who is telling us he's about to raise prices artificially
A lot.
by a lot, by 25% in some cases. And our country is still not waging revolution in the streets. So to me, that's shocking how he can announce it, you know, make his plan to
There will
implement
be
it.
pain.
Yeah, tell us the
Yeah.
pain is coming. A pain that a lot of us have already been feeling for years. And yeah, and it's just the new normal. So um I really love Mexico and Canada's responses from their leaders. I think they got one over on Trump by both getting that 30-day pause on the tariffs, by promising things that were already in the works, and really standing up for their own country's sovereignty.
Yeah.
But that was definitely like, what world are we living
A
in?
lot of people are saying, "Oh, look, Mexico's bending the knee. Look at Trump
Mhm.
being so macho man."
Yeah,
And
right.
you know, I feel like whatever he does, there will be a response that's just like, look at him, this godlike figure who can save the Palestinians and you know make every other country you know bend the knee to what we want them to do.
Yeah.
It's really interesting watching his base just like go wherever he decides they need to go.
Defend the indefensible. I
Yeah.
mean, it's embarrassing, truly. But what I love about President Sheinbaum's response is that she has addressed almost everything the US and that Trump has tried to impose in Mexico, right? And she does her little morning mañanera, which is kind of like the morning announcements for Mexico.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, she goes live at her morning press conference every day during the
That's
week,
nice.
and she addresses the people. And so, you know, the only people living in a bubble here are in the United States. You know, the rest of the world is very aware of what the Trump administration is doing
Yeah.
and their faults and just how fucking backwards it all is. We curse on this, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
As much as you want.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'll
Just
bring a
just
couple of them.
Don't give me a Kanye Twitter rant.
Yeah, no.
You see what he did, dude?
He said I'm a Nazi?
Yeah.
Yeah, no Elon salute. By the way, don't call it an Elon salute. It is a Nazi salute, okay?
Oh my God.
Everyone is calling it an Elon salute.
Yeah.
They are Nazis for sure.
I'll say that's one thing that stood out to me in January. It was a lot of January surprises we can probably go over. At least, so now another one on my list was Elon's. You know, my heart goes out to you know, I'm gonna try and be nuanced for a second because there's like 20% of me that's like it's very possible, or it's not very, it's possible he was just like doing some sort of motion and it really like came out wrong. Like I said, 20% of me.
Okay.
80% of me is like that is a full-on Nazi salute. And like yeah, he has some like, you know, people say he's autistic and whatnot, but like you don't just throw that out. And he's done interviews with like Tucker Carlson and all these other people, and he can clearly compose himself when he needs to. And I think he's smart enough to know like if I'm doing that motion, that's gonna be taken as a Nazi salute.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like
to do it twice.
Twice, man. I'll make that 10% of me, not 90.
I was gonna say that's very optimistic.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have a lot of trust.
But you know, I think it's really weird to see this just like acceptance of that sort of like, you know, when people say Trump is Hitler and Trump's they're Nazis, part of me wants to be like, they're not Hitler or Nazis, they're their own thing. And they're going to use those same rhetoric and similar like playbook tactics, but it's not going to be, it's going to be a new like oligarchic situation that is exactly in parallels what the Nazis did, you know, because this time they have like the Israelis on their side, you know, like that's one thing that also baffles me is Elon's able to do that salute, and I heard some people say like, how could Elon do that salute when, you know, the Trump administration is the closest ally to Israel? And it's like, part of me was like, I feel like there's a distinction between Israeli Jews and then like Jewish people living everywhere else, because people living in Israel are like have similar tendencies to see like Nazis recently, like saying they want to blow up all of Gaza, and if they could push a button and kill everybody in Gaza, they would. And now they're advocating to ethnically cleanse it, and
openly advocating, whereas the Biden administration was doing so and kind of feigning disappointment.
Yeah.
In Israel for doing it, but yeah, I mean, yeah, like you said,
so
off the leash.
I think we're just gonna have a really interesting 4 years where we're gonna see a lot of like restrictions on our rights and hatred towards immigrants, gays, lesbians, anybody who's transgender, leftists, women. Like it is a fully masculine and rich like movement that is very selective towards who they're going to allow in, and they'll allow you into like this base of people that's like, oh look, we're the Trump train, oh look, I'm a MAGA fan, I got the red hat, but like you have a problem with your business, you're getting left behind. Elon Musk has a problem, Jeff Bezos has a problem, Mark Zuckerberg has a problem, they're going to be fine, they'll be there, they'll have the stability and the safety, because like that's what an oligarchy is. And they're not exactly like the corporatists like Kamala and other people who want that stability. I think these people are going to use the instability that they create like shock therapy, where every single thing that happens, if the tariffs go up and the prices are fucked up, okay, bet. I got some great new economic policy based off the ideas of Milton Friedman and laissez-faire capitalism that will allow for inflation to go down, but we'll have to take all this money from you in this way that you're not gonna be able to defend against it. It's an economic policy, and you're gonna rebel in the streets when we have this massive police force and the ability to send you to El Salvador. Like all of these strings are set for this symphony.
Oh, yeah, but
Yeah.
the symphony is, I mean, oof, it's a nightmare. The symphony is a nightmare. And I'm glad you said that we should recognize Trump's movement as its own thing, because it is, right? If, you know, if people have been sitting around waiting for Trump to unveil like a Nazi flag, or, I mean, there's nothing more outright and visual than a Nazi salute, right?
Mhm.
To sort of pledge your allegiance to those ideals of eugenics and genocide, right? Because that's the legacy of Nazism. I think that this movement is more powerful than Nazism was alone. Considering it is
Oh
the
yeah.
new United States,
Yeah.
right? And I sort of see,
And we're the superpower. Like we are the superpower.
we are the superpower, whereas Germany was an emerging power.
Yeah.
And so I think the scale of devastation, you know, can be horrific, even more horrific, right? If we're not careful in these next 4 years, to deny Trump any flexibility he has in his role as executive or pretend our first American king
Yeah.
in hundreds of years. But I see his alliance with the corporations, and I think that was one of the other things that shocked me in January.
Yeah, yeah.
Is, you know, I didn't watch the inauguration, but I saw
The
the
picture?
billionaires lined up, right?
Mhm.
And right next to our folk heroes of old, the Obamas, the Bidens, the Bushes, right? And so you kind of see that this whole show, right? It almost feels like it didn't go like as it was scripted. And the Trump administration's partnership with corporate America and their commitment to dividing us and preying on vulnerable communities day in and day out. I mean, that's creating sort of this combination of post Cold War Russia, like turning into this oligarchy, right? They had some capitalist reform. They took a lot of influence from the oligarchs of Russia and World War II Nazi Germany, right? Where it's the rapid militarization, it's the dehumanization of undesirable groups, right? So we're kind of getting a combo of two really regressive movements in the history, in modern history. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's dark
Yeah.
stuff, and you know, there's so much news that has come out in January, like we could take 10 podcasts and cover it all.
Yeah.
But that's the point, right? Like you
Yeah.
said, is like shock and awe, keep the public what do you call that?
Distracted.
Yeah, distracted, keep them passive,
Yeah.
so that they can carry out their horrible ideas.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And one of the things that you said that stuck out to me, was that and one thing I read in this book called American Fascists was that in this new fascist state, it's not going to be you have to do this Nazi salute and say Heil Hitler. It's going to be put your hand on your heart and say the Pledge of Allegiance and stand up at the national for the national anthem. And if you don't do that, we're going to know you're not the patriot. We're gonna know you're the person who dissents. Because if you didn't put your arm up at a Nazi rally, they're gonna be like, what the fuck is this person doing?
Mhm.
You're not loyal to the army, you're not loyal to the country. It's exactly the thing here. You're Colin Kaepernick. There's screenshots of people saying if you burn the American flag, lock up the people on Trump's comments. That's completely unconstitutional. It goes against the First Amendment. So it's going to get to a point where we're going to be able to tell who is a patriot and who's not at certain events, unless you like don't go outside or something. But once that's figured out, I'm really interested to see, what steps will be taken from this administration. And I don't know. Now that you can picture like somebody coming from England and studying abroad at UCF in Florida, and they go to a Palestine protest, and maybe there's one person who says like, "Oh, go Hamas," and the whole protest is labeled as like a Hamas loving gathering, and this individual who was from Britain gets locked up because he violated the Israeli, anti-Israel Florida law, and then they can be deported to El Salvador. And then, like, how are we going to contact that person? How are you going to reach out to that person? How are you going to, like, make sure that they're okay? I mean, the El Salvadorian prisons are, like, the worst of the worst. And right now they're saying, oh, we're just doing, like, violent criminals and undocumented immigrants. But, like, you can mess up. Or you don't have to mess up. You can do something on purpose. What if you send one? Why, if you could send one person there who isn't a violent criminal and was just somebody who went to a protest, and you can just send one, what's to stop from sending more? And if you could do 100 in 100 days, what's going to stop you from doing any more after that? That was already allowed under this administration. So I don't think things are like the worst of the worst right now, but I do think we have to be prepared for what can happen. And people always say like, "Oh, Michael, you deal in hypotheticals." Like, I remember my friend debating me. He's like, "Bro, everything you say goes back to the Nazis. Like, they're not Nazis." And I'm like, "It's not that they are, but like they can be, and they're saying things that are similar. And we need to be like really alert because these are patterns that exhibit from movements. Like these are just patterns of people. It's sociological. You put these specific circumstances with this specific group of people, and you're probably going to get these results. It's just how politics and sociological and psychological, functions work. So I just threw a lot out there.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, yeah, I'm sitting with it. Oh, well, you brought up immigration, right? And that's obviously the issue that's nearest and dearest to me. Growing up in a mixed status family, I grew up with the fear that my grandma, my brother could be taken away. And my grandma passed before getting her citizenship. My brother luckily was able to become a citizen. So by the time he was 18, he was able to become a citizen. And so their cases were resolved, but it just goes to show how unique and complex each immigrant's immigration case is.
Mm.
And I mean, I'm not sugarcoating anything. They are deporting nonviolent people whose only offense has been to come here and break a civil law, right? In overstaying their visa, in living here undocumented.
Or being a child born in the United States of undocumented parents.
Right. And that's, the main target of the Trump administration is to strike fear in those people and in their loved ones. Right. And I mean, the Guantanamo Bay, I was not expecting that.
No, that was
Right.
I mean,
It's unclear whether it's going to actually materialize how Trump wants, but
I know they've sent people there. The planes have started.
yes, so he's already populating in, and he's saying it's the violent criminals, but we know we can't trust anything that comes out of this administration's mouthpieces.
Yeah. Again, all you need is one mistake, and it's
Mm.
normalized.
Mm.
You know.
And you know, it's not a mistake if it's
Yeah. Exactly.
intentional,
Exactly.
right? The fear and the dehumanization, the cruelty is the point.
Yeah.
It's the point. So it's been heartbreaking to see the mass deportations begin. I think it's something like above 8,000 people who are undocumented have been detained and are in the process of being deported or detained indefinitely, which is terrifying. And you mentioned the protesting in Florida, specifically where we are. Student protests, student organizing has already been suppressed so much. I fear that in Florida, it is safer for the movement to hold on to our young people and make sure that they're safe and not necessarily risk their lives, risk their livelihoods in such a hostile environment without the adequate community support. I would say, you know, let's get out there, let's protest, you know, let's storm the streets of Tampa, Orlando, Miami, Cali, Jacksonville. If I didn't seriously think it could do more harm than good. And that's coming from an organizer, right? That's coming from someone who understands the right to protest. I'm not someone who believes protest is not important, but in this era in Florida, I almost want to say, guys, make sure you are doing your reading, make sure you are converting people, make sure you are trying to raise awareness in your community. But let's live to fight another day and let people who have adequate community support systems, which we don't have in Florida, unfortunately, do the protesting for us. I think since Florida is the capital, the hotbed of fascism in the country, we can do more good by staying in the cut, collecting information, staying abreast of the situation, and coordinating with other organizers in the South, in the country, to push this administration. But I hate to say it, and it's not like I think Florida's a lost cause, but it's just we can't keep doing the same thing. We have to change our strategy.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm coming from.
I have an interesting take, and you might not agree, but I don't think we should be even. I actually think it's kind of exactly what you're saying, but like I don't think we should be protesting right now. And it just seems as if like the protests that I participated in, there's an aspect of it that has been performative, and there's another part of it that just hurts because they've never worked. I mean, they've worked to an extent, but like they've never gotten the things that we need done. And I think if instead of protesting, like I think what you're saying, read the books and learn, and I would add like frame the message and like every chance you get, like be pushing like the severity of what this is. And if people aren't like angry, you have to frame it in a way that's like, this is something that you should be angry about. And you have to take out every possible part of you that wants to do this for any sort of aspect. That is like, because I have felt that before. Like, I want to give the best speech at this protest or whatnot. But like, that doesn't matter.
Right.
What matters is like, are you getting the people walking by? You know? And I'm saying that because like, looking back on it, I'm like, me being the fucking loudest voice in this big crowd, like, it's about talking to the people that are there and like, hey, do you want to join in?
Yeah.
And if they say no, you're like, why not? Do you see what's going on? And I think that as we build this momentum, the only goal because I as much as I love protesting, I think the biggest goal should be like instead of doing like the protest happened today at Waterford, for example. Obviously you can do that, but like all the effort should be on any protest, even getting people together to form a huge general strike, either in a city, if you want to pressure a local official, a state, if you want to pressure the governor, or like some massive coordinated general strike that we are willing to sacrifice for.
Yeah.
People are going to run over us. We are going to have like people will die. Like it sounds bleak and dark, but like if you're in Florida and you're blocking the traffic, people are going to hit you. That's like the thing that they want to do now. I've seen comments on Instagram like, "Oh, all these people should have been run over at a Israel protest."
Yeah.
So like we have to be willing to sacrifice. Like people are going to be out there fucking with guns because they might think us blocking the road is going to stop them or their family from getting to their work to help out their dying grandma who is a Republican but is getting gouged by the medical companies. And they're going to be like, you protesters are destroying all these middle class and poor people. When really like it's the halting of that economy that will hurt the top. And we need to be prepared and be willing to deal and face that while also coordinating our efforts and absolving the differences of minutia of opinion. You know, like, oh, you think we should solve it with this, and I think we should solve it with that. It's either you like are a right winger, you're a corporatist, and you're a centrist, or you're like just down to help out somebody who's poor. That's it for me. Like you either want to have healthcare and college and access to abortions and free and like freedom of speech, or you want to lock somebody up for burning the American flag, like which is a constitutional right. Are you a patriot or not?
Yeah.
You know? And I think it just seems like the left has been so like pushed down that I hope what you're saying will come to fruition. That will really like learn and gather and like I hate to say it, but like put behind us some of the woke ideas that we pushed through. And that was not that they're bad ideas, but like any effort to be like, we need a transgender pilot in the Air Force who's gonna bomb somebody in Gaza. You know, like
Right.
those things are completely captured by the right wingers, and they say, look at that trans person there, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, it's like we need to advocate for the equality, but if people at the top are exploiting it, like call that out just as hard.
Yeah.
And I saw that at UCF a lot where it was like we got this victory, but like the poor Latin janitor, who you can tell is like the sweetest lady of all time, hasn't seen a raise in like 5 to 10 years. You know, and it's like we can advocate for that, the identity equality, but we also need to advocate for the economic inequality. And if that like poor janitor maybe is like leans toward the right wing and she likes Ron DeSantis, we still got to make sure like she's included and like advocated for. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no. You're right on. And I think you're getting to the litmus test, the purity test that leftists often screen, potential allies
Yeah.
with. I think that's what you're referencing. And, at this point, we're at a point where that shit is so far, that is an ages old concept. Where I think most people are sick and tired of that framing. And it is something that the top has weaponized, right? I read this article, it was a Guardian article, sorry, I forget the author. But the title was American Politics is Identity Politics. And what that means is that both parties have weaponized identity to keep economic equality from reaching the masses, right? And that's because economic inequality is actually what ties all of us together, no matter the
It's
race,
the root, man.
the sex,
It is the
the
root.
gender. your background, whether you're an immigrant or not, that is what ties us all together. So, no, I mean,
It was like Kamala and the Dems were like using somebody who like using transgender individuals as like a way to be like, look at these right wingers who are transphobic. And then the right wingers were like, look at these people who support transgender women in sports and therefore they actually hate women.
right.
It was like
two sides of the same coin.
I was just like, bro, my mom's healthcare is like $50,000 a weekend for cancer shots.
Oh.
I don't give a fuck about this DEI.
Right.
Like we can talk about it and have a conversation, but like both of you clearly are not in it for the right interests.
Yeah.
Like you're not in it for our interests, you know?
Exactly. No, you're exactly right. You can't care about abstract, performative shit like that when you're struggling to make ends meet, and people around you are suffering because of it. And that's the fear that fascists like Trump tapped into, and it's one thing to recognize the fear and put a name to it, than it is to just pretend that it doesn't exist, which is what the Democrats did. Democrats pretended that this was a great economy, that they were our knights, coming to save the poor, when in fact they were leaving us behind as well.
Yeah.
And they were lining up their coffers. Nancy Pelosi was lining up, her stuff.
Yeah, man. And
the whole time.
Biden pardoning his fucking kid 20 minutes
The
before
whole time.
the inauguration.
Yeah, well, I think that was a last minute sort of reflex.
I know, but like the precedent that is set, dude.
Yeah.
The precedents for the
Yeah.
presidents, gotta be careful with that shit.
Well, I guess he saw, he's like, well, Trump's coming in.
Yeah.
I can't lose. Like, he's about to break every rule there is.
Yeah.
So why not stretch this one? Yeah. Yeah, that was interesting.
Before I want to save Gaza for the end, or like later
Oh,
on.
Man.
Let's talk about RFK.
Oh, brother. The nominations, all the different nominations.
Yeah, let's talk about those nominations.
Oh, I just want to say before we get to RFK,
Let me pause real quick. We're gonna talk about RFK. I'm gonna keep an eye on my cats so they make sure they get the food they need.
Gotcha.
We're gonna be right back.
Okay.
All right, we're back. We're gonna do the podcast. All right, no, I'm not gonna do that anymore.
No, it's slightly more heaving. It's like slightly more like he's about to cry.
Yeah, he's like choking on something.
Yeah, he's about to choke up and he's choking on something.
So RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, Marco Rubio, who won 99-0, Kash Patel, Pete Hegseth. It's really like
Pam
just
Bondi, Florida.
I don't even know who that is.
Pam Bondi, the new attorney general.
Oh my God. It really seems like Trump has just like taken this big ball of goo and just like thrown it, and that it's at the wall, and it's just like pick out these people who shouldn't. I don't know, man. RFK, I feel like I think he genuinely believes what he's saying. That doesn't mean he's right. Like I don't think he's lying to me. I definitely think he did. Maybe he is lying in the sense that he gave up everything he believed to get in that position. But I do think there is a part of him that really thinks like we need to be healthy. But like to believe that Trump is going to be the administration that cuts ties with the big agriculture industry and like makes foods cheaper is like preposterous.
Right. Yeah, I've always been fascinated by like RFK's popularity. Like from the beginning, I was like, this guy's a loon. Like, okay, maybe he says one correct thing every 100 sentences, but I was never really sold on his authenticity. And maybe you can speak to that, like why it seems that I've spoken with people who are smart, who like I would say are outsiders to the system, who really believed in his candidacy or believed in like the authenticity of his message. I think there's something we can learn from that, especially because it is a critique of the system. But yeah, at the end of the day, he's a puppet, right? He's gonna do whatever
Daddy Trump wants.
yeah, whatever it is that Trump wants him to do. And I'm not a big fan of the dynasty heirs. You know,
Yeah.
I don't care if you switch sides now. Like he's a swamp thing. Like it's not surprising to me how flip-floppy he's been. Because the things he said on the campaign trail don't match what he's about to do in this role for Trump.
Yeah.
And so, speaking of flip-floppers, I am on this podcast to hate on the only nominee that got a 99-0
Marco
vote.
Rubio.
Marco Rubio, the slimiest weasel there ever was. It is unbelievable to see where Marco Rubio has ended up. He was like a prospective golden boy for the Republican Party in like 2012. He was railing at Obama. In 2016, he was he had a real shot of becoming the Republican nominee. And the things he said were almost like, yeah, like that's a little common sense. He said, it is, if you think that stopping foreign aid to other countries is going to make America safer, you're lying to yourself. He said that. And now he is the Secretary of State in an administration that just cut all foreign aid, right? The USAID. And he also said to Trump on the debate stage, you cannot make Gaza a real estate deal. And now he's part of the administration that is going to steal Palestine from the Palestinians, steal Gaza.
Let's talk about that now. Now we have to talk about it.
Yeah, sorry, I had to get there.
Bring it up.
But yeah, fuck Marco Rubio. And of course, he's also overseeing the mass deportation of Venezuelans, of Haitians, Nicaraguans, of Mexicans, of Latinos, and otherwise, who are damn near responsible, right? Whose stories are parallel to those of his parents, right? So he's the biggest cuck there is, slimy weasel, and
Bernie,
I would say that.
Bernie, this guy shouldn't. He voted for him. I like the Rage Against the Machine shirt, but
crazy that Bernie voted for him. I'm gonna chalk that up to, like, you know how like when you're in a city that's like doesn't have tons of like attractive people, so like the scale kind of slides.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, well, this city's full of 5, so I guess a 7 to 10. I think that same principle is like to the nominees. Like, all right, Rubio was like a 7 next to like 3s and 2s.
Yeah, he was He was the most like qualified.
Technically,
yeah.
He was. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Gaza now. I mean, I feel like I've known this was gonna happen, and I don't think Kamala would have stopped it. I saw Phil DeFranco, not somebody I listen to a lot, but he posted, he's like, for those who didn't want to vote for Kamala Harris, like, do you regret not voting now that seeing what Trump is doing in Gaza? And I was just like, what would she have done if Israel decided to do it anyways and just call it a different name? Right. Oh, we have to get Hamas. We have to move them out. Like, they were already wanting to do it. The one thing that some people were right about, though, is that, you know, Trump is going to be much worse.
Yeah.
And he is much worse. But at the same time, it's like, would you rather have Kamala just keep it going for longer and longer, or Trump just to be... Trump says it out loud. Yeah, we're going to take over fucking Gaza. Like, not going to lie to you. We're not going to say we're stopping Hamas. Like, we want Gaza. Yeah. Part of me actually prefers to just be told the fucking shit straight up, so I can actually combat it. That's what I knew you guys wanted to fucking do. Thank God. Now I can say how fucking stupid you are and how much of a horrible idea that is. And you can't just say I'm a pro-Hamas agent, because You want to take an entire piece of land. And I actually think that puts us in a better position to articulate our argument against it. Because Kamala was like, oh, look at all these people who are anti-Semitic. And Trump might do the same thing, but at least with that, we have an argument. On the deeper scale, though, the fact that, he said we're going to ethnically cleanse Gaza, and the fact that he still has so much support and the media is just letting it happen, and the way he's just able to squash the ICC really just tells me we're living in like some 75 years ago timeline where Japan goes to invade China, the United Nations says like, or League of Nations is like, hey, stop. Japan's like, no. Okay, Germany's like, gets the green light. Let's go do whatever we want then. Like this, again, precedence by presidents, like, the fact that we do this and we can sanction the ICC is going to lead to, I think, a very interesting few decades. I don't know what's going to happen. I try not to get existential, and I think I've been pretty existential this podcast, but I kind of enjoy the theorization.
The thought exercises.
Yeah, but I do think Gaza is going to be even like a year ago. I remember talking to my friend Loki in Ecuador, and he's like, "Oh, I want to go clean up Gaza. I'm in the Peace Corps right now," and he's like, "I want to go fly there and help clean up the rubble." And I'm like, Gaza's done. I said that last May. I was like, there is no Gaza anymore. It's Israel. And I feel like if you, as honest as you could be, and you knew everything, with all the context, you knew this was going to happen. But even then, it still is just the worst of the worst. Like this is so atrocious and appalling. And there's a part of me that just like, as I'm driving around and I'm walking around and I'm just like thinking about people starving like that, even just talking about it. Like you and I can bring it up and it's good, but like you go up to somebody at a restaurant or on the street, they don't have a clue. And I think that part scares me even more. And if you try to talk to them about it, they're like, oh, I don't want to talk about politics. I don't want to, that's depressing. And that part makes me even like,
yeah, I think too many people think like that. And obviously what's happening in Gaza is, like you said, it's like the worst has come to pass, right? And it's been happening. The worst has been happening. That's why I believe when you ask people who care about Gaza, who maybe didn't vote or voted for a socialist candidate, like Karina and Claudia, like I did, for example, this past cycle. When you ask us, the Biden-Harris administration walked so that Trump could run. Biden-Harris
that's a good way to put it.
Enabled this entire genocide.
They set the ground for it.
They did everything except for clear it out and put Trump's name on the land that belongs to Palestinians. So this has always been U.S. Foreign policy. It's always been support Israel in their war crimes, help them expand. And now I have no doubt that they're going to use a port built on Gaza to enrich Israel and the United States. It's always been about that. What's really heartbreaking was finding out that the death toll is in fact upwards of 700, 800,000 in Gaza.
Yeah, Trump just let that slip.
Yeah, and I think, obviously the media is the mainstream media is not going to cover it, but to realize that 800,000 Palestinians have been killed or lost. The scale of that, I don't think
you can't wrap your head around it.
Yeah, it's impossible to appreciate, for lack of a better word, the scale of that suffering. And this is the first genocide that I have actually lived through in terms of seeing it hearing it, learning about it, and to think that my country, right? I was born here in the US, in Florida, to think that my country is responsible for that and has to live with that. Whew, it could make anybody just kind of want to curl up into a ball and give up. But every Palestinian I've met, every person from the Middle East I've met, they teach me something about what it means to be Muslim, what it means to be from that region, because the strength, the courage, their resolve, and just the ability to know the truth and speak it and live it, and in the face of everything. I mean, it's really admirable. Lately, I've been watching this show called Mo on Netflix.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Just came out.
I've seen a little bit.
Amazing show. It's a bit satirical about what's going on right now. It follows a Palestinian who had to. It follows a Palestinian, Mo, who's a comedian, well-established comedian, who has to escape Kuwait, and ends up in the United States as undocumented. And so
this is the one where he's in like the shooting and he's like, don't call the ambulance.
yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I mean, it's not just a commentary on immigration, on
Yeah.
Gaza, Israel. It's a commentary on everything that's backwards about the U.S. And so watch that, uplift Palestinian voices, read Except for Palestine.
I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, by
Mark Lamont Hill.
Yeah, by Mark Lamont Hill, exactly. Thanks.
He actually just interviewed Chris Hedges.
He did. No
Yeah,
way.
so
watch that.
yeah.
Oh, we should do like a live reaction to
Yeah,
that, right?
because I have the Mark Lamont Hill book and you have the Chris Hedges book.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
I could pull up a little clip if you want to do a little live reaction to some of it.
Should we now?
Yeah, I think that'd be pretty cool.
That would be cool.
Let's see what I can do.
But I was thinking, there you go.
Oh, come on, Mark. We saw that ad for the CIA. You know, what am I? I'm a trans, binary, and I can torture people in Guantanamo too. I mean, who cares whether, the people bombing the Israeli Air Force pilots bombing Gaza in the genocide are gay or trans or women? Who cares? I mean, it's superficial in a sense that it doesn't deal with the mechanisms of repression,
which for you are always economic.
They're primarily economic, yeah. I mean, the distortions within American society. You can't maintain a democracy if you destroy your middle and working class. You can't. It's impossible. And that's what we've done. And so now we are facing the specter of this, rolling kind of fascism. And you're right, people vote for it. People vote for it out of rage, out of anger, out of desperation. I don't forgive some of the views of my relatives in Maine, but at the same time, I don't demonize them. It's mostly based on ignorance. But the people I can forgive are the people like Elon Musk or Trump. I mean, let's be clear. I mean, these people are racist to the core. I mean, they don't even try and hide it that much, and they're also misogynists and everything else. So it's decoupling of ourselves from economic injustice. And look, this is what all the great, even Martin Luther King at the end, there will be no civil rights until there are economic rights. And he's killed marching with the garbage workers in Memphis. I mean, and of course the liberals all walked away from him. I mean, it's fine if you want to integrate Georgia, because nobody can afford to eat where we eat in Manhattan, so we don't care. But as soon as you talk about economic justice, they went for the door. And King was, as you know, of course, a very lonely figure at the end, and a very courageous, amazing figure, but very lonely. Absolutely. Because of that economic component is key. And it's key to overcoming everything you and I care about. And that's and building a system of justice. But if you extract that drive for economic justice, then it becomes a kind of boutique activism.
Let me ask you something. I want you to put your...
That's where we've been. We've been, boutique activism. I know tons of boutique activists.
I feel like that really touched on what you and I were saying earlier about the economy is just like the big root of it all. And if you're able to get the economic change for people, you can really just change the minds. But as long as people are suffering, it's going to be hard to get the win.
Right.
And so as we wrap up, I want to talk about one last thing that I think you're gonna love. I think it's gonna stick with you.
Right.
Have you heard of cloud capital?
Cloud capital, no, I have not. What is
Have you heard of techno-feudalism?
Techno-feudalism? No. I haven't.
So there's a Greek author, shout out the Greeks. His name is Yanis Varoufakis.
Okay.
This lighting is interesting.
Yeah.
And he wrote a book called What Killed Capitalism. And his idea is that we're now not in capitalism anymore. We're technically living in a feudal society and we are serfs. And there are like three things that really stick out to me that I want to tell you about. One is the idea of the power structures in a techno-feudalist society. Under techno-feudalism, under capitalism, let's say you're working at a factory and your boss is exploiting you. That's your main enemy, right?
Yeah.
In techno-feudalism, your boss is exploiting you, but your boss is also exploited by Jeff Bezos, by Mark Zuckerberg, by Elon Musk. And now the power is dispersed differently. So if we want to win, Giannis basically says, you have to work with these capitalists who would maybe exploit you, but also have the power and resources you need to stop those at the top. And that was something it really was interesting to think about, because I was like, I know a business owner who like super right wing and always talks shit about Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, but he also like loves the right wing, and like loves Trump. And I was like, if only you could realize and use your resources to understand that like Trump and Elon are the bad guys. So that was something that was interesting. And
Yeah.
then you wanna
Yeah,
okay.
Before I lose it.
Yeah.
Lose it. So, thank you for introducing that term. Made my mind go crazy. So when it comes to teaming up with capitalists, right, to take down the lords, basically the
Yeah.
lords of this society, which I love. I love the new term. What it takes is, like you said, capital. It takes power, resources to not just put together any sort of social movement, but also to lift up people who otherwise are not going to be able to do anything for you, right? So what I see my job as is now, whereas before, I was a frontline soldier in the organizing world, right? My job was to mobilize people. Now my job is to bring as many people out of poverty with me as I can. And it's not just to get them out of poverty, but it's to alleviate that economic angst so that I can activate them on a higher level.
Yeah.
Right? And what that takes.
Keep talking, I'm gonna turn the light on real quick.
Yeah. And what that's gonna take is for me to find partners to build up my own wealth, right? And I think that's what we should all be thinking right now. How are we going to position ourselves to amplify and empower the people around us, right? Because we're only as strong as our weakest link, and so we really have to change our strategy. Like I said, like at the very beginning of the podcast, like we cannot keep doing what the Democrats have been doing, which is mobilizing once a year, once every 2 years, once every 4 years. We need to give our community the resources that they need to live. First, because they're human and because they deserve it, and our government's not providing it, but also because that gives us the best chance to fight this techno-feudalism.
Yeah.
And only by joining that sort of middle management rank of people who have capital, can we start to influence and change that.
So Awesome points. And I now want to hear your take on another concept from the same guy called cloud capital. And he says this is what the techno-feudalists use to keep us as serfs. So think about Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos, for example. Like when you purchase something, usually you give that, like if you go to the store, you buy it directly. And it's not, let's go beyond those business owners. Let's think about like Spotify, YouTube, Netflix, very lucrative industries. Giannis basically says these are the new public squares, and essentially you are a serf who pays rent to these landlords in order to live in these spaces and communities.
Yeah.
Oh, you're watching Stranger Things. Want to be part of that community? You got to pay rent. Oh, look at all this music that's out. You want to listen to it? Pay your rent. Rent is due. $8 a month. Oh, look. We've went 7 years without putting ads between Invincible episodes. Now you got ads. You want to go ad free? Your rent's going to increase.
All right.
You want that garage outside of your to park your car in the carport? $30 extra a month. Another pet? $20 extra a month. So Giannis is basically like, we now have this second form of our rent. To pay to rent to live physically, we also have to pay rent to live digitally. And we're paying rent to these anonymous landlords who are siphoning all of this from us, keeping it to themselves and increasing rent when they don't even need to increase rent. Netflix is like, oh, we're gonna take away 4K. If you want 4K, you got to pay extra.
Yeah.
You want other people to visit your house, to get in the gate, you got to pay extra. You want to share that household, extra rent. And I think that one stuck with me even more than that, like petty bourgeois capitalist and then the Lord, because this is like, holy shit. Like I really am also paying rent to all these companies because I want to exist in these spaces. I want to partake in some of these things.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then like you're really gonna be left out. And I wanted to throw that out there because I feel like already you probably have a lot of cool things to say.
No, I mean, it's crazy to think that, a handful of billionaires control all of the digital public forums that we use. And now they are being deregulated. They're being sort of unleashed for the worst thoughts and the worst types of echo chambers in our society, and we don't have a choice. We don't have a choice over their policies. We can choose to disengage, right? We can take ourselves out and just not pay rent at all, but that means losing what was in the past a tool that helped us amplify our message, that helped us sort of create awareness over the need to rise up. So it's like, is it worth disengaging?
I mean, I won't be able to watch Invincible, bro. Like,
Right? Yeah.
it's not on cable anymore. Like, feel like you would just pay one fee and you could just watch this thing. Now, if you want to, all these platforms are all trying to get different like ways to gouge you.
Yeah, and I told myself, actually, I made this promise to myself. I will delete Amazon Prime after I watch Invincible. And then I'm done. Because it's unethical. It really is unethical for me to, continue paying rent to these guys. Like, I have to, that's why you should, bank with a credit union and not a bank. Because you need to put energy into the things that nurture you, that help you. And right now it seems like no one is aware of the fact that we are perpetuating the very system that's killing us. We are doing that, right?
Yeah.
We forget the power we have. So
if it was 2015, I would say we're both woke.
if it was 2015, no, I mean,
I'd be like, whoa, we get it,
bro. I will never forgive them for taking woke.
I know.
Like,
I remember I used to be like, oh, that's an achievement.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I'm woke. Of course. What do you mean? You're asleep.
Yeah.
Shout out Black culture. Thank you for woke. Sorry, white people did that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And one other thing I wanted to ask you. What is a credit union?
A credit union. So a credit union is basically like a community bank. They're usually small, they're usually locally owned. But their profit motive does not exist, right? So they're a bank that doesn't need to make profit.
Hmm.
And what that means is that you often get better interest rates on loans. You often can access loans even if you have terrible credit. You often get special perks from being a credit union member, and you don't have to deal with these exorbitant fees, overdrafts. I mean, the horror stories that I've heard from like Bank of America and Wells Fargo people, like it's true. They don't give a flying fuck about you. Join a credit union, cut your ties with these institutions who are funding, the very people who are making our lives harder, and join a credit union. Easy. Join Suncoast and you can give us both $25. So
I'm gonna look into that.
Refer a friend. I'm gonna refer Michael here.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah.
Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. I had a great time, great conversation, and I need to do more of these podcasts because I think anybody who has any idea about what's going on needs to speak up. And I got the mic and the camera, and I got a good friend to talk with. So
Thanks,
expect to
Michael.
see Gabe back on soon. Expect to see more of me. And thank you everybody for watching. If you want to plug any social media or anything,
Stay woke.
stay woke.
Stay woke. That's it.
If Gabe wants you to find him, he'll let me know and you'll find him. But
Eat
if he
your
doesn't,
veggies.
yeah, go do that instead of
Go to the gym.
trying to follow people online.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Take care. Thank you so much for watching.